The ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force.
Oh! Okay! In that case, do you think you could elaborate?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because that is exactly what we are here to do today. We are here to calculate the power of Luke Skywalker. Hello Internet, Jojo here, and welcome to Idea Shock. Now, just so we're all on the same page, I don't like Disney Star Wars. I think that the original and expanded universe is significantly better than any and all Star Wars produced under Disney. However, I also like Dark Empire, so I'm kind of a black sheep in the fandom anyway. That said, if we can at least agree that Luke Skywalker is one of the greatest characters to ever cross the silver screen, then I think that we should be able to get along just fine. So, if you agree with me on the fact that Luke is awesome, then hit that like button and let it be known. That said, let's get to what you're actually here for, to find out how strong Luke Skywalker is. So, to start this off, we will look to Luke Skywalker and the Shadows of Mindor, a novel that came out in 2008. In this book, Luke is explicitly stated to have, and I quote, power that humbled even the Death Star. The very interesting thing is that this was 6 months after Return of the Jedi and his fight with Vader. So, it actually kind of makes sense because of one of Vader's most iconic lines in the entire franchise.
Don't be too proud of this technological terror you've constructed. The ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force.
So, this statement about Luke being able to humble the Death Star is not out of the blue. Now, if you just Google how powerful is the Death Star, you will find the number very quickly, and the number will probably be about 240 nonillion watts of energy. And yeah, that is very capable of destroying a planet. Normally I would just check the source to see if it's credible and then in there, but there was no source. So instead, I decided to blow up Alderaan myself. In Star Wars Legends, Alderaan is almost identical to Earth with a diameter of 12,500 kilometers and normal gravity. To destroy a planet like this, the Death Star would need a minimum of 211.1 nonillion joules of energy. However, that has just overpowered the gravity that holds the planet together. As you can see when it is blown up, it's not just broken, it's shattered and launched across space. To do this, according to the formula that I'm using, the Death Star would need about 11.21 duodecillion joules. That's adding 8 extra zeros on the end of the first number, and is actually a good contender for Luke's highest power output. Until, that is, you remember that it says humble that of the Death Star. So this could mean that Luke is many times stronger. In fact, as we'll see, he is. This next feat is from the novel New Jedi Order Dark Tide Onslaught. This is another one that I don't know everything about as I don't have access to the book. However, with paragraphs provided from a respect thread by WolfMyth209 on Comic Vine, I was able to piece together enough information to get a calculation for this feat. Now, in this book, Luke is in combat with the Yuuzhan Vong. The Yuuzhan Vong has a ship called the Dovin Basil. This ship is known to be able to make black holes that, if activated on the planet's surface, would latch onto the planet's core and pull the planet's moon crashing down to the surface. Now, in this instance, this ship is using this black hole to intercept any missiles or attacks that Luke is firing at it. In order to get past the black hole, Luke uses the Force to pull it away from the ship and hold it there as he fires some proton torpedoes at it. As the torpedoes got closer to the Yuuzhan Vong's ship, they began to increase the black hole's power in an attempt to pull it away from Luke. As the torpedoes got close to the ship, he released his hold on the black hole and then began to push the hole, adding his strength to the strength that the Yuuzhan Vong were pulling it with. So with the power of the Yuuzhan Vong and Luke's power combined, Luke pushed the black hole to where it would end up completely consuming the Dovin Basil. Okay, so there are 3 things that we need to get from that. First is that this is a real black hole, as it can pull a moon from orbit and bring it crashing down on the planet. Second is that the entire feat must not have taken that long, as the last part of the feat took place before the protons hit the ship. And 3, the black hole was large enough to consume the ship sideways. Because we lack any visual element, we can't find how fast the hole was being pushed. However, we know that it was moving close to the same speed as that of the proton torpedoes. Okay, the ship that got sucked up is about 810 meters in radius, and using that as a Schwarzschild radius to the black hole, we find that it's about 545.387 octillion kilograms of mass. That's the weight of about 91,000 planet Earths. So, with the black hole's weight, we now just need to find the proton's speed. To do this, we're going to look back at the original trilogy when Luke fired a pair of them into the Death Star. Now, from the moment they entered the exhaust port to the moment the Death Star explodes is about 11.1 seconds. Considering that the distance to the center of the Death Star, where they were supposed to end up, is about 80 kilometers, these torpedoes must have been able to cover about 80 kilometers in 11.1 seconds, putting them at 7.2 kilometers per second. This would actually make sense, as these protons would have to be faster than the X-Wing itself, and by looking at the ship's targeting system, they appear to be moving at about 1 kilometer per second. However, that's not all there is to this. These protons should be faster than even the X-Wing or TIE Fighter's fastest speed, and what we just calculated is not that. The fastest these X-Wings move is right after the torpedoes go in and the X-Wings begin their escape. From the second that Luke goes off screen to the second that ships come back on screen is only about 4.85 seconds. By taking the wingspan of the X-Wing and the diameter of the Death Star, we can find that they're about 2,310 kilometers away. For these ships to move that distance in that time, they must have been able to move at about 467.316 kilometers per second, or Mach 1,388. As I mentioned before, these torpedoes should constantly be faster than the fastest speeds that this ship can reach, or, they wouldn't actually be useful in combat. Now, before we mention it, proton torpedoes are not intended to be slow. In fact, they're used in aerial combat quite a bit. They just look slow because of the video games, but that's not actually how fast they are. So, if you assume that Luke is moving this black hole as fast as a proton's slowest speeds, then he must be exerting about 3,358 yotatons of TNT, not accounting for acceleration. If you take the proton's fastest speeds, then Luke has to be in the realm of 14.78 million yotatons of TNT. This isn't even close to that of a supernova, which Luke has been compared to several times, but that'll come later. Throughout the expanded universe and the canon timeline, we are repeatedly told that Luke is the strongest Jedi to have ever existed. George Lucas himself said that Luke is what Vader could have been if turning to the dark side did not cost Vader an arm or leg, and Vader is basically the love child of the Force, so he stands above the rest. Because of this, it's not too far off to compare Luke to some of the greatest feats by one particular Sith that Luke has fought several times, Sheev Palpatine, or, as you might better know him, Emperor Palpatine. In Star Wars Dark Empire, the Emperor uses a dark side power called Force Storm. This storm is described and acts like a wormhole. Now, don't get wormhole confused with black hole, they are different things. A wormhole is really hard to explain, but basically, the main difference between the two is that a black hole is completely destructive and has far greater mass. Its light-bending gravity destroys everything around it, but wormholes are more of a tunnel in space that link two locations together. In simple terms, one destroys and one moves. However, this Force Storm can do both. It can crush an entire fleet of starships or move one Jedi to a distant planet. But first, I have a proposition for you. Join me, and together we can take YouTube by storm as YouTuber and subscriber. Come with me. It is the only way. Unless you're one of those people who watch my videos and don't subscribe, don't be that guy. Cool. Ring the notification bell. Another thing that we need to address is the length of the tunnel. You see, both black holes and wormholes don't really work like that. Wormholes are holes in space, so no physical thickness, and black holes are, well, they're weird, and they don't look like that. So, we really just have to ignore this entire thing for now. I say for now because we'll attempt to adjust for it later. By comparing the Force Storm to the Eclipse here, we find that it has a radius of about 6,138 meters. From here, we just plug it into the Schwarzschild radius calculator and find that a black hole of this size would have a mass of about 4.133 nonillion kilograms. This is about the same as 692,000 Earths. As you can see, significantly heavier than the black hole that Luke moved. Using the famous formula E equals mc squared, energy equals the mass times the speed of light squared, and we find that for Palpatine to create this storm in the first place, he must have produced 3,714 foe, or 3,714 times the energy of a supernova. However, that's just the energy to create the storm in the first place, and we know that Palpatine was strong enough to move it through hyperspace. In the Star Wars universe, moving an object into hyperspace can only be accomplished by faster than light travel. So, plugging the hole's weight and light speed into a kinetic energy calculator and accounting for acceleration, we find that this should require about 37 hypernovas. For those of you who don't know what a hypernova is, let me tell you. A hypernova is a stellar explosion that ejects material at an unusually high kinetic energy, making it an order of magnitude higher than a supernova. If that doesn't make sense, then just think 3,714 supernovas. Wait, that's what we calculated for the energy to create this hole in the first place. That is a coincidence if I've ever seen one.
What do we say about coincidence? The universe is rarely so lazy.
Well, you see, we actually did the same thing for both calculations. You see, E equals mc squared is the same as saying energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. And what did we do to calculate the energy to send this hole through hyperspace? We took the mass, multiplied it by the speed of light, and got energy. However, that's not accounting for the energy to get it moving at light speed in the first place. As we've discussed before, the most conservative acceleration rate ends up doubling the resulting energy, and that has the same effect as the mass times speed of light squared part of the energy formula. This isn't quite a coincidence, but it's weird to have both numbers come out to be the same, as if I decided to go any higher or lower in regards to speed, or decided not to account for acceleration, the number would have been vastly different. Not gonna lie, I actually laughed out loud when I first calculated this. So, adding both these numbers together, and we find that Palpatine can produce the equivalent of 74.294 hypernovas, or enough to destroy our own solar system 3,228,000 times. Now, scaling Luke to this might seem absurd, as Luke does not have as much experience in the dark side as other Sith do. However, he still should be able to match Palpatine's raw force power, not to mention that Luke has also manipulated the brightness of stars, making them brighter by several times, and has been compared to supernovas multiple times, and was even able to kill Abeloth. For those of you who don't know, Abeloth is the strongest force user in galactic history. If the force was a person, it would probably be her. Any and all other force users, Jedi or Sith, including characters like 58, who, in the Shadows of Revan game, is implied to be able to destroy an entire galaxy, should be weaker than Abeloth. Now, I haven't actually gotten to play that game, but I'm sure that some of you out there have, and can let me know if I'm off at all. Especially if I'm off with the pronunciation of 58. I didn't even bother trying, I just went with it. If you actually look at the scene that we're shown, it's clear that this destruction is not affecting the gravitational binding energy, but instead it's more like being completely erased or something similar to that. Now, because that feat is even possible in the Star Wars universe, characters like Abeloth should be able to match it, and as Luke hurt and even killed Abeloth, he should be comparable as well. Taking the total mass energy of the Milky Way galaxy and scaling it up to the slightly larger Star Wars galaxy, we find that to destroy the Star Wars galaxy, a person would need about 113.588 octodecillion joules. That's the equivalent of 11.35 trillion hypernovas. Of course, to be fair, Luke was not alone when he took out Abeloth. He was fighting beside Darth Krayt, while Ben Skywalker and Palpatine fought two of her avatars. Obviously, the avatars are not as strong as the original, but for the sake of argument, let's say they were. This means that her power was divided up into 3 parts, and because it took both Luke and Krayt to take her out, we can assume that they are each on par with roughly half of her power in that moment. This means that Luke is roughly 1/6 the full power of Abeloth, or capable of generating about 18.92 octodecillion joules, or enough to destroy 1/6 of the Star Wars galaxy. Though, he could be as strong as Abeloth because he killed her Force essence. With power like that, it's no wonder that Luke Skywalker is called the most powerful Jedi in the galaxy. Oh, and by the way, yes, he can walk on the sky, or even fly. I just really wanted to point that out. But that said, as you can probably tell, we don't have a whole lot of time to talk about anything else in this video. And yes, I do actually have more to say. In fact, I have most of the script for Luke's speed written, so if the mood hits, that might make an appearance, but I'm not making any promises. Now, if you like this video, then you know what to do. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Remember to stay spectacular. Jojo, out.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.